Good evening, everyone. This is to advise those present at this February the 12th, 2019 regular board meeting / action workshop of the Board of Education of the City of Pleasantville in the County of Atlantic that notice was given on January the 4th, 2019 of the 2017 revised annual designation of the regular monthly board meetings as required by the provisions of Chapter 231 of the laws of 1975. Notice thereof has been distributed for publication in the press, the Absecon/Pleasantville Current, and the Mainland Journal, posted in the Administration Building and forwarded to the City Clerk of the City of Pleasantville within the time required by said act. Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
The time is 5:08. Ms. Couch?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Here.
Ms. Mello?
Here.
Mr. Norris? Present. Mr. Page?
Present.
Ms. Thomas?
Present. For the record, Mr. Callaway cannot make this evening's meeting due to his work schedule. Please stand for the flag salute and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, Mr. Tompkins. You want
Madam President, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Ms. Couch made the motion.
Can I get a second by Mello? Any questions?
I have a question. This changes the agenda that was set. The last meeting we voted for a set agenda. This changes the agenda because the executive session is normally near the end or in the middle of the meeting. Who made the decision to put the executive session at the beginning?
Well, we're going into executive session because we have a couple of attorneys here that we need to discuss the matter.
My question is, who made the decision to adjust or change the agenda that has already been set and approved on by the board the last meeting? Who made that decision to change the agenda? Madam President.
Well, the agenda's changed and we're going to take the vote to go into executive session.
My question is, I'm asking you a question. This is very important because this is a business meeting of the Board of Education, and I am a board member. And
Okay.
I don't remember at the last meeting that there'll be any discussion of changing the set agenda, which we already have executive session somewhere in the middle or near the end of the agenda. Madam President, I'm not saying that it can't be changed. What I'm saying is, when we look at a set agenda, we should be looking at the same agenda how it's set up from the last meeting, which we approved on. If, Madam President, you want to bring the executive session that's already set in the agenda up to the front, you would have to get that approved by the board.
Jim.
I disagree, Mr. Page. There was no approval of an agenda format at the last meeting. The superintendent, in conjunction with the board secretary, sets the agenda, and then it gets forwarded to all the board members prior to the meeting. So I don't think any vote is necessary. It does require a majority vote to go into executive session, and if you object to that, you certainly can voice your objection.
Well,
at the time of
my
vote.
question is to the chair. It's not to the attorney.
The chair had asked.
And I would
the chair had
like
asked
for
that I
the
address
attorney,
your-
I would
that
like
answer
for
your
the
question.
attorney to
The chair had
submit.
requested that I address your question.
Oh, she requested that you
Yes, sir.
talk?
So any other question, Mr. Page?
Yes, there is a question. Why are we going to executive session without being approved by the full board? You cannot change the agenda without being approved by the full board.
All right.
Can we do this in the future? That if you want, see, if I want to add something.
I'll take, Mr. Page, I'll take that into consideration, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Ms. Clemens? Ms. Couch?
Yes.
Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mr. Norris? Mr. Page?
My vote is yes, and be documented in the minutes that nothing is to be changed of the agenda unless approved by the board. Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Just for the purposes of, Mr. Rice is here, Calvin Rice? Mr. Rice, you want to have your matter heard in public session, correct? Okay, so we have the attorneys here from AIG. All right, and that's on the Irwin settlement? Anything else? Okay. So there will be discussion. The attorneys representing the board on the Irwin matter will be making a presentation to the board about the status of that case. Ben? That'll be all.
You at a time, Mr. Tompkins?
Question.
Wait, excuse me.
Are we talking about the same case that was pulled?
Wait, excuse me. I was asking Mr. Tompkins, you had the time? You have the time to go in executive session?
The time is 5:15.
5:15. So we did the motion, correct? To go in executive session? So I need, okay.
I have
It
a
is
question.
hereby resolved that the Pleasantville Board of Education may go into closed or private session from which the public shall be excluded in accordance with the provisions as set forth in NJSA 10:4-12 and 10:4-13. The following subjects shall be discussed on the day in the session of the board closed to the public: personnel, pupil matters, pending and anticipated litigation. Be it further resolved that the discussion in closed session will be disclosed to the public at this time or a future meeting of the board when it is no longer necessary to maintain the confidential nature of the items discussed.
Madam President, we have to vote?
We already voted.
I have a question. Is this the same case that was pulled by the superintendent at the last meeting?
What case?
The case we're about to hear?
No,
Is it Calvin Rice?
no,
Oh, it's not.
no.
Madam President, the time is 6:39.
Can I get a motion to come out of executive session?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Morgan, second by Mr. Barkley. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
For the record, the only matter discussed was the matter of Irwin versus Pleasantville Board of Education, docket number ATLL 1385-17. We had an update from AIG attorneys who represent the board, and no official action is being taken at this time.
All right, we're going to start with the superintendent's report, please.
Good evening, Board. I'd like tonight to relinquish my time for my report to Mr. Ryan McGowan, who is the engineer for our district. And he will present some information regarding the HVAC projects that are pending, as well as the information regarding our elevator that has been out of commission for a while.
Sure. So as Dr. Olson said, I'm primarily here to provide updates for the HVAC projects. The two projects are at North Main Street and Leeds Avenue schools. At the North Main Street school, at the end of the summer, the school unfortunately experienced a failure of their geothermal system and the heat pumps. The heat pumps provide both heat and air conditioning for the facility. So we had to switch over to a temporary cooling system for the remainder of the summer. Through the winter, we designed a replacement system that would be an air-to-air chiller and hot water boilers to replace the geothermal system and heat pumps. You've had pretty negative experience of that. There's been a lot of repairs to the geothermal system over the years. So we're switching back to a sort of more tried and true, reliable method. Along with that, there are 3 alternate bids for replacement of various other equipment. One is the air handler unit, which is original to the building when it was constructed in 1974, 75. So that is beyond what you would project its useful life to be. The other is for the replacement of VAV boxes and ductwork through the entire school. The ductwork in the North Main Street School is internally lined. That was a system that was devised and fairly popular in the 70s, but no one uses it anymore because at some point that internal insulation delaminates and will start to blow out into the classrooms, into the school. So it's only a matter of time before that occurs, so we suggested that we replace the ductwork at this time. And the way we structured the bid, we had it one alternate with the ductwork and one without, so that if the contractor didn't feel that they could complete the project over the summer, they didn't have to bid on the ductwork. Obviously, the most important part for both of these projects is that they're completed in the summer and we can open the schools on September 1st. So both contracts have a construction completion deadline of August 30th. Moving to Leeds Avenue School, again, towards the end of the summer, we found that you had one failed chiller unit and one failed cooling tower. The cooling tower has a shaft that drives all of the fans, and that shaft is bent. In order to replace it, you'd have to remove a block wall. And it's just not an economical thing to do at this point. They're both at the end of their useful lives also. So we have a base bid to replace the failed chillers and 2 cooling towers and associated piping and mechanical work. And then for this project, we also had 6 alternate bids that included rooftop units over the gym, multi-purpose room, and atrium. Included air handling units, one in the 3rd floor attic and one in the main room where the chillers are located. A replacement of a hot water boiler in the cafeteria / multi-purpose room area, and then a new boiler in the main mechanical room. Those are also sort of towards the end of their useful lives, so ideally we should replace them while we're getting and doing all the other mechanical work. As a brief update on the elevator, the inspection to open the elevator is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. The facility was inspected last Tuesday, I believe, There was an issue with the fire alarm, but it turns out they reconnected to the building's existing fire alarm, and apparently something with that had not been configured properly, so they anticipated it to work as it had been, and it did not perform as they had expected. So they brought in the Allied Fire Systems, who's the vendor for the schools, and they made the correction, so the final inspection should be tomorrow morning. So we expect that the elevator will be operational as soon as the inspector leaves, 10:30 or so tomorrow.
Yay.
Long time coming, I know.
Yes.
It's been a frustrating process, that's for sure. So that's it, unless anybody has any questions, like anything else you'd like me to address?
I have a question. So when are we planning on starting this work?
Well, so ideally, we need some feedback from SDA. We put the projects out to bid for both replacements North Main and Leeds Avenue, and both of them, the bids came in under the project cost estimate. So at this point, we're working with SDA, trying to see what funding they can make available to the district to move these forward. The project will start as soon as we can get them awarded, frankly. Some of this equipment has very long lead times for ordering. So we're going to allow the contractors to work only in mechanical rooms and in areas where they won't disrupt the school after hours until school lets out. And then essentially the contractor will have free reign in the mechanical rooms and anywhere this work will be proposed through the entire summer in both facilities.
Another thing is, can we get monthly reports?
Sure.
Because you did say that it should be completed, well, the project should be completed August the 30th.
Correct.
So can we get monthly reports on that?
Sure.
For the progress of the projects?
Yeah, absolutely. We can provide that.
Okay. Any other questions, board?
Good evening. With all the work that you're saying that you're about to do, would this resolve the mold problems that we're having in the school system?
It will certainly help to remediate it going forward. I obviously won't treat any existing mold issues that you have, but a full upgrade of the HVAC system should prevent future mold growth if that's the driving force behind why it's forming in the first place.
Do you know what school has the most mold problem that can be targeted first?
I don't offhand. Again, at this point, this is just addressing failed systems.
Okay.
So going forward, we'll continue to work with the district to address other issues.
Any other questions, board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
I'd like to recommend that we push all of our professionals up, because, we're paying them, to have our last professional before public session so that they may all leave.
Who's that?
It's a pleasure of the board.
Are we changing?
Excuse me.
Um,
Oh, who's that, Mr. Tompkins?
The last one is our CPA firm.
Oh, for
It's a
the,
pleasure of the board
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tompkins for the audit?
for the audit.
I have a question. I thought this was the superintendent's report, and he allowed this gentleman to take over from there. Are we still on the superintendent's report?
No, that was a question I had for this board,
Oh.
Ms. Page.
Are we, Madam President, are we still with the superintendent's report?
No, we're not.
No, we're not?
No, we're not.
Oh, it looks like he was getting ready to grab the mic.
I was about to answer your question. Yeah, that was, as I said in the beginning, I was relinquishing my time to
Right.
report to Mr. McGowan to report on the HVAC systems and the elevator.
Oh, thank you.
So, Mr. Tompkins, this is what we'll do. We'll open up public portion, and then we'll have him come up to talk about the audit.
Madam President,
So
can we make a motion on that? You're changing the agenda.
I'm changing it from what?
You're changing the agenda. You're following the agenda. The next thing is a public comment. After that, we have organizational chart.
Are you on page 2?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay, so next is public portion.
yes. But after that, you want to hear some other reports, but
No, I don't. That's not what I'm saying.
we're going to follow the agenda.
We're going to start with public portion.
Follow the agenda. Thank you.
So Who did you have, Mr. Tompkins, for public portion?
Who has a list?
So we have Steve Young,
board members, public. I'm basically here to follow up from several meetings that was done in the past. Since that time, we have found out that several things have been happening in this district that we were very surprised that affect the children of this district. And then since that time, there's a coalition of Black Men United, and I would like to have all of them to stand at this point. Thank you. And it's about transparency, accountability, and access to information. And right now, I want to follow up on Calvin Rice's issue of a fair process and the due diligence of his employment of this district of all those years. At the last meeting, an executive session, it was asked by me that what is it that you cannot tell us now that you have to bring it back on the agenda today? That was not answered. We would humbly appreciate an answer at this point. Why couldn't you answer it at the executive session, and why is it back on the agenda now?
Mr. Young, that is an action tonight. It's 7.3 on the agenda, so it'll be dealt with. Mr. Rice has asked that be in public session. This is just public comment. This is not about that matter. That matter will be dealt with separately, not in public session. It'll be a public matter, but it will be dealt with separate, not on the public comment session.
But my question,
Right, you can ask that question. I'm suggesting when it becomes before the board, when we reach 7.3, that's when that would be appropriate. If you're still his
is
representative.
that when the answer would be?
If you're still his representative and he wants that question asked, presumably it would be at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Next, we have Calvin Rice.
So I think, Mr. Rice, if this is about that your matter, that it will be dealt with as a separate item. If you want to say something else in addition to on the agenda or anything else, you can speak. But if it's regarding your particular employment situation, that will be dealt with as a separate hearing, public hearing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Next, we have Dawn Rice Bivens.
Is it the same thing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
The agenda actually has the wrong board members on here that we have.
It does.
We're aware that one board member was
No.
not on.
No, not one.
It's the old one.
It's the old board on the agenda. Okay. At the last board meeting, I submitted an Oprah request. Does it take 10 days? Isn't that written in your policy that I would get a response in 10 days? I haven't heard anything.
Ms. Rice, what Oprah request are you referring to?
The one I handed this gentleman and asked you, would you get it?
From the last meeting.
And I specifically said, would you get it? I'd like to hand it to you. You told me to hand it to him.
Whatever it is, a request.
Can I proceed?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Now that your meetings are starting at 5 o'clock, there's a lot of people from the public that work that don't get off until 5. So the public comment, if somebody happens to come in a little late, they can't sign to be able to speak. So, and if they get off the same time all the time, when would they be able to voice any opinions to the public at the board meetings? Is there any way that the second public session can be opened? Because it is part of what you guys have approved. Is, can he not find it?
No, that's,
I just want to know where it's at. I did submit it. Okay. Is there a reason why we can't have mics for everybody? In the back of the room, when people make, we can't hear. So is there a way that everybody can have their own mic and they can speak into it? Because when you're in the back of the room, you can't hear, and I record everything that's said, so I can't hear it and a lot of other people can't hear it. So is that something that can happen in this district? I'm quite sure we have more than the amount of mics that are here. And number 8, I would ask and make sure that on your HR agenda, on page 8, was the job description approved at the last board meeting? For Mr. Tyson? I just would like to see the job description.
I don't think no one has it here tonight.
It says a new position, so I was just wondering if I could see the job description. Is it on the web?
Mr. Tompkins, is it usually on the web? No, right?
And with this position, does there come certifications? Does he hold all the certifications that would come with this position?
I know it may sound ridiculous since you didn't get your last Oprah request, but Oprah requests are supposed to be responded to within 7 days.
Oh, okay.
Even if it's going to take longer, they should respond to you that it should take longer. So you should have had an answer on that. And we'll make sure that that's followed up with tomorrow. Likewise, if you wouldn't mind submitting an Oprah request, the job description is public information. You can have that. Beyond that, he would have to have whatever certifications are necessary. I don't know whether the job description, I assume that it lists whatever certifications are necessary, and then in order to be hired in that position, he would have to have those certifications.
Okay, no, once I read the job description, I'll contact the boiler and find out about all the certificates, because that stuff is public knowledge. Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Renee Irwin.
Good evening, everyone. I am actually here on behalf of the early college team here at the high school. We are having an event here on February 21st, and I wanted to make sure that each of you got the invitations to it and they didn't get lost in mail. So,
Ms. Irwin, you could put them right there and Ben will pass them down.
okay. So
Thank
this
you.
is for everybody in the board.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Joseph Stratton.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'm addressing the issue as far as a bus, and it has to do with having a bus put back to where it was on last year. Again, I was told in the last meeting that someone would contact me. No one contacted me. So to me, that's a lie. I don't lie, so I don't appreciate being lied to when I'm told I'm going to be contacted. Number one, that should not be. Two, my issue as far as the bus, you say it's a safe area, because you have one crossing guard there. But in the evening, when my child and all the other children are let off the bus, there is no crossing guard on the same street. Heavy traffic, heavy congestion. Now, in the beginning, I came 2 years ago. The Galloway bus was being picked up by the railroad tracks, where I stay at, with 5 other parents whose children also get on the bus. Now, there were 3 public school buses for Pleasantville being picked up in that parking lot. I made a request that the Galloway bus the children be picked up in the same area where the 3 public school buses for Pleasantville are being picked up. And within 3 days, the bus was changed. On this past year in September, the only bus that was moved was a Galloway bus. Why is it such a problem since September to now that a bus cannot be moved to a safe area in a parking lot where there is no crossing guard, where the 3 public school buses for Pleasantville children are being picked up on that bus? Why is it that that bus cannot be placed back? And I haven't received an answer since September. Again, I've had letters written by the parents, letters written by the crossing guard, and a letter signed by all parents and the crossing guard been delivered to transportation about this issue, and it still has not been dealt with. To me, it's about the children, not about the board, not about a position. It's about the children. And when you dismiss what's about the children, then this becomes about you. And this is a small matter, because out of all the matters that I've been hearing since I've been coming here, they are way more important than one bus being moved to a safe area. And if there's a problem with this small issue about a bus, then there's a big problem with all the other issues that I've been hearing about, and I'm only here about a bus being moved. And if you can't solve an issue with a bus being moved back where it worked for all the children as well as the parents, as well as parking, and it's a safe environment, if you can't handle that small issue, which you handled before in 3 days, in September till now, it has not been dealt with. I have not received a clear answer. If you can't handle that in this amount of time, and the last time it took 3 days, this is months. And I'm being ping-ponged back and forth about a bus telling me about the state, telling me about something else and something else and something else, and then being lied to about a meeting. How long must I keep coming here representing children and families for a bus to be moved within 3 days? It was done before. To me, it shouldn't be a question of being incompetent, because it's very simple. I'm asking for something very simple, not something difficult. Because if you can write a small letter and have a bus move within 3 days, why can't you do it now?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's to Dr. Austin. It's to the superintendent. Dr. Austin, this gentleman was here the last meeting. Can you explain to the board what you've done from his request to now? What have you done, Dr. Austin?
Go ahead.
Mr. Stratton and I have talked at least 3 times. We've met at least twice in my office prior to the last meeting, last board meeting. I did not promise to meet or call you again from the last meeting. I think it did come from yours, but it wasn't me. As I summarized to you in my letter and in my conversations with you, Mr. Stratton, one, you indicated that there was a safety issue. And as I said to you, even in the previous meetings, I went to the area where you spoke of, where your children or your child was picked up, to see for myself. And then I asked our security director to communicate with the police and get their opinion on what that area was like. He did so. I also did further research with the supervisor of our buses. And the conclusion, and this is what I shared with you about 3 months ago, that we have certain guidelines where these bus routes are developed and approved, and that they cannot just be changed arbitrarily without some legitimate reason. Your reason indicating safety was not confirmed by the police. It was not confirmed by the director of security. It was not confirmed by the supervisor of busing. So the information you're sharing is not accurate. However, I did communicate to you in writing all of these steps.
Okay, I have not received anything in writing, number one. No letters were sent to me at all. Let me finish. Also, I was told that whenever there is a transportation bump or construction, there is liberty to move a bus route. I'm not asking for a bus to be the children, not just my child, but multiple parents and their children. I'm not asking for a bus to be moved to an unsafe area. I'm asking for a bus to be moved to a safe area that is not congested, where parents don't have to park a half a block away, and I have to stop the bus driver and say, no, you cannot go any further. I have 3 children running down the street to get on the bus. In a parking lot where there's adequate parking, there is a safe area because 3 Pleasantville buses are being picked up in that area, but this one charter school bus has been moved out of that area at the same pickup. And no one has given me an answer about why that bus cannot be moved. If you use a computer program, they're only going to spit out what you put in. And just like I requested the first time to be picked up in the parking lot, it was nothing wrong to have that bus pick up all those children in that parking lot the first time. And it continued the rest of the year. When the new year started, there was a new pickup. All I'm asking is, can the children be picked up in the same place? And I have not received that answer at all.
Actually, Mr. Stratton, you have received the answer. It's just not the one you wanted. And we do need to make sure we have the right address, because the letters that we sent, at least 3 of them, did not come back to us.
Okay, I'll make sure you have my address, and I'll make copies and pass it on to all the parents in the same area. But my request again is, why is there a problem when you can shift the route at any given time for any reason? And I've seen it happen. When they're doing construction in Pleasantville, you'll change your bus route. I was also told in a meeting that there are children who don't get picked up in front of their door. I got videotapes of children being dropped off and picked up in front of their homes at the door. I'm not requesting to pick up in front of a door. I'm requesting in a parking lot where there's 5 families living in a complex on Main Street where there are new apartments are being built. There are 5 families there whose children get on the bus, along with families that are getting on 3 other Pleasantville buses. And I have 5 families getting on 1 charter school bus, and they all live in the same community. Why can't that bus be picked up in the same area?
Mr. Stratton?
Yes.
Can you give Ben your address so we can give it to Dr. Austin to make sure we have the correct address?
That's not a problem.
All right, thank you.
Madam President. I
Madam
have a
President?
Comment. Go ahead, you can go first.
Thank you very much. I think I want to address maybe the superintendent. We should try to change our culture a little bit as it relates to responding to public comments. I think when people come here and make comment, they make it to the board. So it's important we know how you respond to that comment. It's important that we adapt a system that can produce effective follow-up after the comments. Because when they come here and speak and we don't speak back and they leave and we don't know what happened and they come back the next day, I don't know how I appear to them. And I know you put in great work, but I think it will help if the secretary of the board circulate your response to the board members so that we can know how their concern was addressed. Like today, this is the second person that is saying they didn't get a follow-up for concerns they raised. So that I think it's time that we think how to respond and make follow-up to public comments. It makes us to become effective board members if we can address their concerns. The board can be informed that, look, this is warrant a follow-up, this is not a genuine case, but at least you address it and you give it a category that it falls in.
Mr. Barkley,
I agree.
can I just add with that? I don't know if you remember the last board meeting, but this is the same discussion that was said at the same board meeting from Mr. Stratton and Dr. Austin, but the only difference is at the last board meeting, Mr. Stratton had Mr. Christmas there who did his homework and deemed it to be safe on the city's perspective. So this is the same conversation that we've been having with, about this bus.
So we are on the same page now to save us time and back ourselves up. Let's try to document it and circulate to board members. This person came and raised this issue. This is how we address it. I go on my computer and look at it. If he speaks, I know you have already addressed it, but right now I can't even remember how we addressed it. So let's try to document our response to them every time they make a comment.
So, Dr. Austin, I'm just asking, the letter that you sent out to Mr. Stratton, can you send it to every board member? Thank you.
Go ahead. You can take it. Because he said what I was
Go ahead, Ms. Morgan.
I was going to ask about how Mr. Christmas stood up beside him, so I misunderstood. I thought Mr. Christmas was saying that it was unsafe. I didn't know that he said it was safe. But I know, Elijah, you're over transportation, right? I ain't asked you about a lot of departments. I'm asking about transportation. No, because I remember your response where you said that you didn't think that it was an issue of having this bus. So you stick with that, and he's standing here telling us it's about the children?
No, I didn't, no, let's be clear on that. I didn't say that. What I said was,
That's
there are
right.
kids that are walking, how many blocks are we dealing with? That's what I said. And I think 2 or 3 blocks, and I said to him, there are people walking down Route 9, kids walking down Route 9, going on the Lila Road.
What's the
Why
age
is this an
limit?
issue?
What's the age limits of these children that's walking these blocks that you're speaking of, and what is the traffic like?
Okay, if they're going to...
Wait, I'm sorry. What are we discussing here? I'm sorry,
I'm
Ms.
trying to
Morgan,
figure out-
what's your question?
My question, well, I was making a comment, I was going to bring up what I thought I heard Mr.
I'm sorry,
Christmas
Mr.
say.
Stratton, I guess you can have a seat, please. Is there anybody have any other question for Mr. Stratton?
Well, I mean,
Okay, you do? Okay.
I'm listening
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, go ahead,
about an
Ms.
issue that's
Morgan.
concerning what I spoke about.
Huh?
I'm standing, listening about issues that I spoke about that are being discussed between
Right.
everyone on the board.
Right,
So
I get
until
that.
that's done, when
Right,
when
that's
you're
why I'm
done,
asking
then-
if anybody have any questions for you. If they didn't have any
Because
questions.
I may
then-
have questions based on the issue that you are discussing, in turn, about what's being asked. Because you're discussing an issue that I'm bringing up. And if you're discussing that issue and you come to some kind of conclusion, I have a right to respond to that.
Well, I get that, but but you only get 3 minutes, and your 3 minutes is up.
No, you can't, see, to me, it's a
But I'm
excuse me.
sorry, excuse me, but
To me-
what I'm gonna do, Mr. Stratton, if Ms. Morgan, if you don't mind, because Mr. Norris did say he has a question for you, so I'm gonna let Mr. Norris ask you the question.
Okay,
All right? So go ahead,
But
Mr. Norris.
Before you say something, I have to say this. To me, it's a contradiction because I didn't have 3 minutes when I was here last month. I had over 3 minutes.
And this time you
Okay?
had over 3 minutes.
And currently again.
Right.
So if we're dealing with, and this issue has been going on since September,
Right.
okay?
And I get that.
So to me, it's frustrating, not only to me, but to other parents who can't make the meeting.
And I
So
get
I'm
that as well.
representing them as well.
But the thing
So-
is, I just can't have us going through public portion the whole, the whole
I'm not
night.
asking for the whole
right,
time.
Right, but
I'll-
I'm just saying, so I have to put a time limit on it.
Okay,
But I'm
well-
gonna let Mr. Norris ask you the question, Mr. Stratton.
Okay.
Mr. Stratton, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you said this has been happening since September of
Yes, sir.
2018?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for the entire board. If that was your child being picked up, wouldn't you be concerned about this? There shouldn't be a
Yes.
time limit on picking on somebody's kid.
Yes.
It's all about safety. I think as a whole, as a board, we should be able to make some type of allotment, not allotment, but some type of pickup for this young man, for his child to be safe.
Absolutely.
There shouldn't be a time limit on how much you spoke last week or this week. And if it was my child, I would be up there right behind you. So I think that we should consider, not even consider, I think we should make a motion to change the bus schedule to accommodate the safety of a child.
Excuse me, I don't think that we can do that. And then not only that, this is one parent, so you want to make a rule and to change the bus stop where there is, 5 kids that get on that bus?
Over five.
Over 5 kids that get on a bus?
Okay.
But Madam
But-
President, I'm sorry.
But what's your question to Mr. Stratton?
Mr. Stratton, have you received anything from Dr. Alston stating that he received your letters? Have you guys been corresponding, in other
No,
words?
I have not.
And this has been going on since how long, sir?
September.
September. And we're talking about February, talking about 5 months. Safety is the issue here. This should have been handled a long time ago. Not only tonight, but should have been handled a long time ago.
Because the first situation when I asked the bus to be moved into the parking lot, I only asked because I saw 3 other Pleasantville buses picking up children in that parking lot, where it was a safe environment, no school crossing guard was needed, there was no issue.
Right.
And within 3 days, the bus route was changed to be picked up.
Right.
And there was an addition of one other child on the bus, and that parent actually told me, I have no problem bringing my child to that area. That parent is having a problem parking for her one child in front of the school. But the parking lot that I'm asking for is very convenient for all the parents as well as for the bus. It doesn't hold traffic. It doesn't allow any extra congestion in front of the 3rd Avenue School. So what I'm asking for has never been a difficult thing to change a bus route, because bus routes are being changed all the time for traffic. And if you're picking up there 1 year and you can't do the same thing for the same group of families with one additional child, and the parent has no problem picking up that area, then why? Why cannot it be done? Because I don't control the board. I don't control the bus route pickups. I can only ask, not only for myself. I'm one man standing, represent multiple families and the kids that ride that bus.
Right.
When there were unsafe issues for that bus and children were being picked up and had to cross a major highway, I think it was on the Black Horse Pike, and they had to cross all the way over the other side, there was someone named Gus. He was able to help us get a bus change. Galloway was picking up a bus over there for those in the Galloway area. They made a change in a route as far as not having that child being picked up where that child had to run across the pike anymore, and that stopped. So what I'm asking for is not a bus for our children not to be picked up in a congested area where it's already congested. It's safe, but it's more congested.
Yes.
Because you got kids waiting on the corner and we're holding up additional traffic.
I asked a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tucker. Go ahead, Dr. Austin.
Yes, I hate to put him in the spot like this, but our director of our security is here. Mr. Adcock, I hate to put you on the spot. Would you mind coming forward, please?
My
Madam President.
Dr. Austin, is your director for transportation here?
No, he's not here.
I think that's the person we need to talk to, because if they can change the
Well,
routing, if
I
they
did
can
talk to
change,
him.
security is one thing, but
I'd like to,
I haven't heard you said you
Wait a
talked
minute,
to.
excuse me, Mr. Page.
Before you answer, Madam President, can I just ask a question?
What's the question? Go ahead.
Where's,
Wait,
As
wait, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Adcock, please come forward, please.
no, this is not.
Are you familiar with this situation? Okay.
Somewhat, yes, sir.
Would you mind sharing what you are familiar with and what you have found out?
From what I understand from Mr. Carmichael, who runs the transportation department, the route was changed because of the project that's going on Franklin Boulevard with the gas company. That affected traffic on many streets, Main Street, Franklin Boulevard, and other areas. So many, I shouldn't say many, a few routes were changed to accommodate that year-and-a-half-long project that they're doing at South Jersey Gas. That's my understanding of why the bus route was changed.
And
Right.
in response to Mr. Stratton's concern regarding safety, do you remember talking to any law enforcement or doing any investigation yourself on that idea?
I did. I've reached out to the police department, Chief Sean Riggin, myself, actually Mr. Carmichael. We went out, we did some assessments, we checked the area out. Many kids go to that school every day. They walk up both sides of the streets, they cross over. There is a crossing guard there daily at the student arrival and at student dismissal. There are also security officers that are positioned outside the school during the day, as well as other staff members that are outside to collect the kids as they arrive in school on that day. The bus itself acts as a traffic control device. Once it's lit up or the lights are activated, it acts as a traffic control device. So although it is a congested area, there's no doubt about that, as most areas in town are when the kids are going to school. But again, the bus itself acts as a traffic control device, thereby stopping traffic and allowing the kids to cross the street as safe as possible.
And one more question. Do you also remember doing any, having any discussions with the Pleasantville Police Department? Anybody representing that?
I did.
agency?
I spoke to Chief Riggin himself and Captain Matt Hartman, who runs the traffic division of the police department. And again, their assessment was as mine, is that it's not a particularly unsafe area, given the reasons I just mentioned as far as crossing guards, security guards, and staffing, and the use of the bus itself as a traffic control device.
Okay,
Question
thank
to the,
Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Adcock, where is this stop?
From what I understand, it's directly across the street from Washington Avenue School.
It's right there at Washington Avenue School,
Right
correct?
in front of the school, yes, sir.
Right. And are children walking there?
Yes,
Okay, children are walking there, and the bus stops right there, correct?
yes.
All right. Where is your stop, sir, that you're concerned about pulling into the parking lot? How many blocks? I think I asked that question last time as well.
It's a block and a half.
A block and a half.
Yes, and my request is not that it was all fully unsafe. My request was that why is it that there are 3 Pleasantville buses being picked up, children, in the parking lot where I requested for a charter school bus to be picked up, the children, in the same parking lot, which is safe. Why was it moved, that one bus, why was it moved in front of a school where you continue to have 3 buses being picked up in that parking lot? Now,
I'd like
if
to
those 3
understand,
buses,
sir,
excuse
I'd
me,
like
if
to
those,
understand.
if it's safe for those
And-
3 buses, then it's
Walk
also
one-
safe.
1 block and a half.
Then it is also safe for the charter school bus. So if you're gonna move my bus, then move all 3 of the buses to be picked up in front of the school. Because to me, that's not fair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stratton.
no, I to the officer,
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
I have a question.
Mr. Tompkins, you, well, he did,
Just for
oh,
officer.
he has a question for you?
No,
Oh,
for the
okay.
officer.
Mr. Tompkins.
How you doing, boss?
I'm sorry, so,
I'm no longer a law enforcement, Mr. Page. You call me officer.
well, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mr. Adcock, I don't know what Mr. Page is doing, but he didn't go through the chair, so,
Well,
I'm sorry.
actually, no one went through the
So
chair.
that's it for public portion.
No, I have a question. I have a question.
That's
Doc-
it for public portion.
I have a question. My question is this. In all your investigation
Excuse me.
of everything,
Excuse
did
me.
everything, was
Excuse me,
anything
Mr.
put?
Page.
Was anything
Mr.
put?
Page.
He still has a question on the floor.
Still have a question.
I didn't give him the okay to ask. He
Madam
didn't
President,
ask
can
me
I have a question? Can I ask a question?
Give me 1 minute.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Did you put all?
No. I'll let you, just give me a minute while I talk to Mr. Tompkins.
Well, I can answer while you talk.
No,
This comes down to this man stay here for his kid. That's all he wants.
Mr. Adcock. Can I talk? Is that all right?
You ready, Mr. Page?
Yes, I am. Dr. Austin asked you your investigation and what you developed. Is any of that in writing? Did you give him a report?
No, not in writing, no.
Okay. I would ask that you put all that in the report, because this is the first time we're hearing of your investigation part of it. But to the gentleman, I'm sorry, the name again?
Joseph Stratton.
Mr. Stratton, since September to now, your comments have never changed.
No, they have not.
And what I believe the situation is, we already have 3 buses that are picking up in a parking lot very safe.
Correct.
All you want
Yes.
is to have 1 bus come into the parking lot with the 4 buses to
Yes.
pick up the children.
Correct.
That's it.
That's all.
That's it.
That is it.
That's it.
So,
Who didn't get that?
I make a motion.
Madam President?
I make a motion that Dr. Austin correct this situation ASAP. It can be done. Did I have a second?
Madam President?
Go ahead, Mr. Barkley.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move to second. Who seconded?
I did. Mr. Norris.
Question.
I want to appeal to my fellow board members that we don't act on emotions. Like you asked a strategic question, you say, is the transport director here? That's another important element that is not in this whole game.
Correct.
So let us set up a system that we investigate and evaluate the whole concern.
Yes.
We haven't done it yet.
We got the motion on, it's been seconded.
Excuse me, Mr. Barkley speaking.
We haven't done it yet. I don't want to set a precedent where we can vote on issues because they arise our emotions. And tomorrow we'll be finding it difficult to retract what we've done.
Right.
So let us set up a system when we get this kind of complaint, we investigate them thoroughly. And we have evidence on our hands to move forward with. I understand you've been waiting since September. It will not hurt to wait small more time. Because we are all on it together.
I know.
But to move with emotions now, I mean, I don't know what I'll be voting on.
Go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
You cannot direct the change of the spot. That is not allowed. You can ask the superintendent to investigate and report back to the board, but you cannot tell the superintendent to change the location of the, I don't care. No, the board members cannot do that, Mr. Page. You know that. Mr. Page, you're a certified board member, you're former board president.
If the
You cannot
board-
no, sir.
If the board votes on the motion, it can go down or it can go up.
No, sir, you cannot.
It's been
if your
since
motion-
September. Listen.
If your motion is to change the spot, you cannot do that. That's an improper motion.
My motion is
Thank
for
you,
Dr.
Jim.
Austin to correct the situation. Now, adding another bus to that area, what is the big deal?
All right, Mr. Page, we heard it.
It's made in a second.
We heard our
Call the vote.
attorney. Next we have
Call the vote.
the audit presentation.
Motion's been made in second. Call the vote. See what the board feels.
Mr. Page, it's not a proper motion.
It is a proper
If your
motion.
motion is to have it investigated and
It's been
report back to the
second.
superintendent, it doesn't matter, sir.
It does matter, sir.
Okay.
We have to follow Robert's Rules of Order.
You cannot legally, in the state of New Jersey, the board does not have the right to direct the location of the spots. the transportation
We're
pickup
talking
spots.
about a spot that's already has buses there.
If you want it reviewed and
What is the
reported back,
issue?
fine. But you
The-
can't,
the
when
spot
someone shows
already
up and
has-
says, I want a bus stop in front of my house, you can't all of a sudden say, okay, majority rule. It doesn't work like that.
That's not the
You're putting
motion.
the safety of the students,
That's not the
all of
motion.
students.
And listen, I'm
at
not
risk.
here to argue with my attorney.
That's it.
I'm not your
Okay.
attorney, sir. I represent the district. I do not
You
represent.
represent the board,
All right,
sir.
excuse me,
May I say
Mr.
something,
Page.
please? May I say something, please?
Excuse me, Mr.
As-
Stratton, I mean, to make this matter.
As a
To make
taxpayer,
this matter better, I'm just asking if you can have a seat, please.
okay.
Please.
I'm
Just
not-
make sure
I'm
you
not-
give your address to
I am not
the
adding,
attorney, please.
excuse me, I am not
No.
adding a problem to where I see a problem.
Right, and
I'm not a
we get
problem.
that. We get that.
What I'm requesting is not a hard thing to do, because when I made that request over a year ago,
And I
it
get
was
that.
granted in 3 days.
Okay.
Why is it taking so long to do the exact same thing unless there's some incompetency going on?
All right, Mr.
Now,
Stratton.
from me, excuse
Mr.
me,
Stratton,
I'm,
please have a
excuse me,
seat, please.
excuse me.
Please, Mr.
Just-
Stratton, have a
excuse
seat.
me.
Have a seat,
Just as
please.
you have a right to speak, so do I.
Can you have
and
a seat, please?
And apparently, I'm
Mr.
watching.
Stratton, can you please have a seat?
I am watching you
That's
shut
it.
people down
No, I'm not shutting
disrespectfully
anyone
as well as
down.
myself.
Listen, you have 3
Okay.
minutes. You went over the 3 minutes, so
Okay.
now I'm asking you if you can have a seat, please.
And
That's all
I-
I'm asking
And
of you.
my question is still the same. Why can I?
And we
it be
get
moved?
that. Can you please give the attorney your address to make sure we have the correct address, and can you please have a seat? Thank you.
My issue is not being resolved in 3 months. Because for me, if you can change it in 3 days,
Excuse me,
been
Mr.
months,
Stratton,
and you've
please
done
have a seat so we can
nothing.
go forward with our meeting, please.
but you've done
Excuse
nothing.
me. Excuse me, please have a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, thank you. Next, we have the audit presentation.
I don't know who it is. Well, just not enter it. We want to go after it and make sure it's resolved. Because I don't want to do it on my emotion or something.
Thank you. My name is Mike Garcia. I'm from Ford Scott & Associates. We're a CPA firm in Ocean City. I'm here to present the results of your audit for the 17-18 school year. Just let me briefly outline what we do in the audit, just to remind everybody. It really has 2 phases. The first of which is to confirm and verify the numbers that are reported in the financial statements. But we also, the second part, is that we need to determine whether or not the district follows the rules and regulations that the state imposes on school districts. When we find areas of exception to those rules and regulations, we're required to write a finding and recommendation. And then the board is required to implement a corrective action plan so that hopefully that finding won't reoccur. There is one finding this year, and it's a carryover from last year. That finding is that your food service program has an accumulated deficit of about $384,000. The state does not allow deficits to continue unfunded. And what that basically means, there are really 2 ways to fund that deficit. First is by budget appropriation, meaning general fund money being transferred to the food service fund to offset that deficit. Generally, the state frowns upon that. They would rather see you address the deficit in the food service fund by improving operations. By improving operations, I mean increasing revenues, decreasing expenses. What has happened in your food service fund the last several years is that the deficit was actually larger several years ago. And in the 16 year and the 17 year, the food service program actually ran at a profit and was eating away at that deficit. So it was being funded by improving operations. In the 17-18 year, the food service fund basically broke even, but there was that accumulated deficit from previous years. Had you continued at the rate that you were the prior 2 years, you would have been in better shape. And what really contributed to that was in the 17-18 year, you broke even rather than making a profit because you served fewer lunches and your federal revenue was down about $200,000. Every meal that's served to a student receives a federal subsidy. And so the more participation you have, the more students that eat breakfast and lunch every day, the more money that the food service program is going to make. So in a nutshell, we are recommending again that you do something to address the food service fund deficit. The thing that you really should look at first is try to determine why fewer students purchased, and it doesn't matter whether it's a free lunch, a reduced lunch, or a paid lunch, the federal government still contributes. So really the question is, why did fewer students eat lunch and breakfast in 17-18 versus the prior couple of years? And if you look into that, and if you're able to improve those operations, hopefully that will continue to chip it away at that deficit that the fund has accumulated. And hopefully it can be addressed in the next year or two without requiring general funds. Once again, that's the one finding that is in this year's audit report. It is a carryover from the prior year, and you know, we are required to report it again. The next item that I want to talk about, briefly, the general fund and your general fund balance. All of the board members have a copy of the audit report, and it's there are two documents, but I want you to look at the larger document. That's it. And if you would, go to page 80. And what I want to direct your attention to here is really, this is the bottom line for the end of the year, and I'll give everybody a moment to get to that page. This page is the bottom line fund balance for the end of the year. I always feel that when presenting to the Board of Ed, these are the most important numbers for the board to see. The audit report, as you'll see, is over 100 pages long, so we won't talk about everything tonight, but this is the most important for tonight, the fund balance. And I'm going to direct your attention to the actual column, and you will see fund balance at June 30th, right around the middle of the page. $6,589,853. Does everyone see that number?
Yes.
That's the total fund balance that the district has in the bank at the end of the year, that end of year being June 30th, 2018. That total amount is broken down into several components, and it's important to understand the differences in those components. The first one that you'll see is the capital reserve of $1. Obviously, it's not a significant amount. It's a placeholder. The district could at some point contribute into that capital reserve to set aside money for capital improvements to buildings. Right below that, we have the reserve for excess surplus in the amount of $746,347. Now, the important thing to remember about this number, or to know about this number, is that the state caps the fund balance of school districts to 2% of your expenditures, with certain minor exceptions. Whenever you have funds in excess of that 2%, it gets set aside in this excess surplus account, and the excess surplus must be utilized to fund the subsequent year's budget. In this case, the 746 is the amount that you were above 2% at June 30th, 2018. That money is set aside and must be used to fund the next budget, which will be 1920, what you're working on now. Now, it's important to realize right below that, we have another category of excess surplus in the amount of $2,964,518. That's the excess surplus that was generated 2 years ago and is already being used to fund your current budget, current being 18-19 school year. The difference between these numbers really represents your budget gap, in that the $2,964,000 is about $2,218,000 less than the $746,000. So you've generated less excess surplus. which means your next budget, as Mr. Tompkins has probably already warned you, is going to be very difficult dealing with $2 million less of surplus in your surplus account. Add to that, reduce state aid, your 19-20 budget is going to be difficult. I know you're nearly done with it, but that's what's driving the difficulties in that budget, is the fact that there is less excess surplus at 2018 as compared to 2017. Just a couple more items that I want to go over to recap the fund balance. We have a reserve for encumbrances in the amount of $761,072. That's money that is set aside to pay open purchase orders that relate to the 2018 school year. It's normal practice that the vendors don't get all of their paperwork in before June 30th to get paid, so the money is set aside to pay them, and the payments are made once the paperwork is complete. We also have an amount of fund balance that's designated for subsequent years' expenditures in the amount of $346,476. That's additional funds that the board had on hand that were used to balance the 18-19 school budget. So that money has been used to fund this year's operating budget. That leaves us with our unassigned fund balance in the amount of the $1,771,439. That's your 2% number, the maximum that you're allowed to have. We discussed all of the other components, and when you'll see, it adds back to the total of the $6,589,853. Those are the items that I wanted to stress. We did talk about the food service fund deficit. We talked about the fund balance in the general fund. Those are the items that I feel are most important for the board to be aware of. If you have any comments or questions for me on other areas, I'm always willing to answer.
You have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
Mike, that $2.2 million difference in excess fund balance, we had a report generated separate that pertained to the salary contracts. You have that?
I don't have that report. It was delivered to you today. Is it? Right.
Well, that's part of the issue, is that the reduction of $2.2 million has to do with salaries. Am I off key, off balance on that?
Well, it doesn't come from just one place. The
But
reduction
the
excess
majority of
surplus, yeah. I mean, that's a piece of it. As spending increases, then the available balance decreases.
Right.
Yeah. There's also state aid decreasing, so it's not
Well, the state aid
one
was
item.
reduced by $832,204.
Right. Exactly. So it's
And-
not just one item, but
And this year, hold on, Mike, this year, 266,000 that they also took from us, from the state.
Right.
So all of this is a contribution of having less money.
exactly. We're saying the same thing.
Right, we're saying the same thing.
When revenues are decreasing and expenses are increasing, your available balance at the end is going to be less, yes.
Right. I just wanted this board to understand that there are numerous factors that we have to account for in the 1920 budget, and that $2.2 million is part of it.
Yeah.
Because we have less excess surplus that we have to contend with, that I can put into the 1920 budget. What goes into the 1920 budget is the $700,000+, not the $3.2 million that we had in excess surplus the year before. Correct?
Correct.
All right.
I have a question. You stated years
Excuse me,
ago.
Mr. Page, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I have a question. Okay.
Okay, so address that to me.
I'm looking at you.
Now you are. Go ahead, Mr. Page.
You mentioned years ago that it was sovereign.
The
The
food service?
food service was sovereign.
Yeah, and what I was looking at specifically was the 2 previous years, the food service fund made a profit, and that profit was chipping away at the deficit that was at one time larger. It's $384,000 now. You had 2 years where you made over $100,000 to chip away to get to that point, and this year we broke even. Normally, in a food service fund, breaking even is a good thing, but because you were starting from a negative balance to begin with, you need several years of making a significant profit in order to eat away at the 380.
Now, is that changed because of the food contract that we have? It's been contracted out? It's,
Well,
when we didn't have the contract, and when we didn't have the side contractors, Pleasantville District, we had our own people. And you're saying that it was sovereign at that point?
no. I'm looking at the 2 years that I'm talking about are the 15-16 year and the 16-17.
So that was contracted
They were
out.
contracted out. Yeah.
Okay.
And the other important thing to realize too, since we are talking about the food service contract,
Yeah.
when they don't meet their requirements to you on providing operating revenue,
Right.
they forfeit their management fee to you, and that was fully forfeited in 2018. So they
Okay.
didn't earn their management fee
Okay.
because they didn't meet their contractual obligations to you.
Okay.
But generally speaking, generally speaking, the outside contracted food service programs create a larger profit than having your own, generally speaking. The 2 years that I'm talking about where we did make money,
Right.
they were contracted years, so it wasn't a thing that we
Okay.
switched from in-house to out.
Okay, okay.
I have a question. What year did we start having this food service issue?
Well, I don't have every year's worth of audits with me, but there's been a deficit. Elijah, how long?
Yes. The food service company, when the laws changed, where all expenditures had to be accounted in the food service fund, the general fund was paying the health benefit costs for the food service fund. When they had to consolidate them to a Fund 50, now a Fund 60, all of those expenditures for health benefits went into food service. And our deficit was somewhere around 1.9 million. So almost $2 million deficit when they had that change. We've moved down slowly from 1.9 million to
384,000, yeah.
Yeah, 384,000.
So, Mr. Tompkins, what year was the 1.9 million?
Probably around 2006, I believe, to 2007, when we converted and outsourced the food service company.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just, what is your recommendation to?
Any other questions?
Yes. I'm asking a question.
Okay.
What is your recommendation? Where are your recommendations at in this?
The recommendations are in the smaller report, and, oh gosh, it's going to be, I'm trying to find the page for you. In the smaller report, page 4. And the recommendation is vague in that it's that we recommend appropriate action be taken to eliminate the deficit. I gave you, once again, we can't tell you how you must do it. Page 4, I gave you suggestions on how to do it. Raise it in the general fund budget, which, that means taxpayer money, which is not the optimum way to do it. Improving operations is the preferred way to do it. And now, I'm not a food service or a cafeteria specialist, but what I would do, I would contact your management company and say, why are fewer children eating lunch now? Is there something that can be done with the menu? Now, I know there are nutritional requirements that I can't even pretend to understand, but districts do, when they look into this and focus on the menu, some of them have been able to improve participation, making lunch that students are more likely to eat in your cafeteria rather than bring something from home. So that's what I would do. First step would be get in touch with your management company and see if they have any suggestions on how you can increase participation.
Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
Actually, I don't have a question. What I do have is that the board approved for us to go to universal free breakfast. All children will participate in that, and we will have breakfast in the classrooms, and that will work towards reducing the deficit. So we have a plan in place, and this board has approved that. And as for lunch, we're trying to improve lunch, but the universal breakfast and the universal free is going to change what we define as a humanitarian meal. We provide humanitarian meals. If kids don't have money, we feed them anyway, throughout the whole district. Going universal free, that expenditure will be generating revenue. So there are things that we are working on to improve that. Mike, thank you.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have, number 4.1.
Yeah, Madam President,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
I need motion on 4.1.
I think,
I got a question on 4.1.
I think, Dr. Austin, you wanted to make a change to, 4.1?
Madam President, I apologize. I apologize.
Right.
We need, I need a motion to accept the audit so that we can
Oh,
send it
yes,
up to
yes,
Trenton.
yes.
I apologize.
Can I get a motion to accept the audit?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Norris
I made
made
the
the
motion.
motion, second by Barker.
Yep.
Any questions? Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Barkley?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Yes.
Ms. Couch? Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
I'm going to abstain because this type of item should come out of committee.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Okay, you can have a seat, and then I'll call you up when we finish. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Madam,
right, Mr. Tompkins.
Madam President, I need a motion for 4.1.
I have a question on that before we get a motion.
You want to take it, pull it?
I have a question on 4.1 before we get a motion.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Austin.
Okay. Madam President, I want to, with some various other issues that are going on, I'm reevaluating what I want to do with the organizational chart. So for tonight, I'd like to pull it.
That resolves my question.
All right.
Madam
Can I
President, I
get
need
a-
a motion to table.
Okay. Can I get a motion to table 4.1, please?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Norris, second by Ms. Couch. All in favor?
Question.
Go ahead, question, Mr. Page.
Dr. Austin, when will you have this brought back to the board?
By next board meeting.
By next board meeting, can you please add that into the motion? Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No.
Madam President, I have a issue to talk about before we move on to finance.
It has something to do with finance?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Page.
I do not feel comfortable in voting for the finance or personnel or any of the facilities or anything because since last meeting to this meeting, I have received nothing as to this agenda. It gives me no time to study it. It gives me no time to prepare myself to vote for things I don't even understand. So I'm going to make a motion that's going to really help the situation. And I really would like the fellow board members to really understand and listen to what I'm getting ready to say.
So you're about to ask what? I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask the board members to listen to my motion so we can better understand what agenda we have and that we actually play a role in the agenda developing. In the bylaw, in the policy, we have committee as a whole or standard committees. Madam President, you have not submitted your standard committees of who the chairs of all these different entities, finance, personnel, facilities, transportation, food service. You haven't submitted that. It's part of the.
I have. That's been submitted. If you didn't receive it, then we'll make sure that you get a copy of it.
Well, I didn't receive it, and it
Neither
doesn't
did I.
matter because I don't know when the meetings are. You didn't schedule no meetings. We had no meetings, no committee meetings. So I'm asking this to the board.
Well, that's not true.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I didn't receive it.
Okay.
I'm asking that we go to committee as a whole because
Well,
when we
Mr. Page,
I'm
we've been
asking-
through this from January.
No, we haven't.
Yes.
No, we haven't.
You asked for this.
No, I didn't.
Since January.
No, I did not.
So we're not going to go into this again.
Well, I got to
And
correct
We're not
you.
going to go back and forth about that.
Yes, we are. I have to talk to the board members to get this
Well,
this right.
No.
If you remember, the motion I made was
No.
to add a second meeting.
All right.
It had nothing to do with the committee as a whole.
Committee as a whole, yes, it did.
Now, I'm bringing forth the committee
my-
as a whole. Let me explain.
Listen.
I cannot.
You keep asking for the same thing over and over.
Then
Mr.
let me
Page.
make, I'm going to make a motion to see if it gets second and we can vote on it. Let the
Keep
board
asking
decide.
for the same thing over and over. So
But-
now, you already made it clear that you're not comfortable with voting on finance, HR, and facilities.
All of
Correct?
them.
Oh,
All
okay,
of them.
all of it.
Because
So that's what you had to say. So now, Mr. Tompkins, we're gonna go.
No,
on.
no,
We're
no,
gonna
no,
move
no.
on
You
with
can't
the
cut me off.
agenda.
I'm
Please.
trying to develop
Please
something.
move on with the agenda, Mr.
Madam
Tompkins.
President, I want to
Thank
make a
you.
motion that we go to committee as a whole. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
Second it.
2 seconds.
Mr. Tompkins.
Please proceed with the agenda.
I'm asking, I made a
Mr.
motion that we.
Tompkins, go,
I made a
we gonna go
motion
into,
that we go into.
finance. You're
Take-
out of line, Mr. Page.
I'm not out of
Like,
line.
come on.
I'm not out of line.
Come on.
I'm not out of line.
Come
Listen,
on.
listen, what have we been dealing with all night? We have people that come up to the mic and they tell us the same thing for months.
Go ahead, Mr.
If we
Tompkins.
have the committee structure, we
Excuse
can
me.
talk about it
Listen.
openly.
Well,
And we
I
can
mean,
help
that's-
the
but that's-
superintendent.
That's what you want, but we're not, we're focusing on this agenda. And that's what we're gonna do
Then
tonight.
they call the vote.
We're gonna do that
Call the
tonight.
vote. Let the members
So go
decide.
ahead,
Madam President, I need a consent agenda.
No way, no
well,
way.
Mr.
no way.
Tompkins.
Can I ask a question,
Wait a
Madam
minute,
President?
Mr. Tompkins, we're gonna, pull HR, cause we have, or pull
Okay, pull-
Mr. Rice's.
Yes.
I'm asking to call the vote. I made a motion.
What's that number?
Madam President, I made a motion. I'm not going to continue on until the motion is called, the vote is called. It's been seconded by 2 board members. Listen to what I'm saying. We cannot be continuously
Excuse me,
doing the
Mr.
same
Page,
thing.
you're out of line. You are out of line.
How am I out of line? I'm telling you what I'm telling you.
What's that, 7.3?
Madam
Mr.
President, a
Rice.
motion's been made and it's been seconded.
So how you wanna?
Let the board make the decision.
Consent with the exception of 7.3.
Say that again?
Consent with the exception of 7.3.
Can I get a motion for consent agenda?
Motion's been
with
made and second.
exception
Motion's been made and
of
second.
7.3.
Motion's been made and second for committee as a whole.
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion
for
been made and
consent
second.
agenda?
Motion
You're
been
out of
made and
line,
second.
Mr.
I'm not out of line.
Page.
I'm
You
not out of line.
are.
I'm not out of line.
You are.
Let the board vote.
Ms. Mello? Yes. Second.
No.
I'm not out of line.
I second. I second.
What is going on, please?
Any question,
I have a question.
any
here.
questions about the consent agenda
No,
excluding
no,
7.3?
you cannot do that.
And
I'm a
7
board member, and I'm
7.3
telling
is
you,
Mr. Rice.
this consent agreement is going to push everything through. Wait a minute, you got some things in personnel that
Any
haven't even been brought to the
questions?
board. It has not been brought to the board. Who is filling the seat of Speedy Marsh?
Any
Moore.
questions?
Who is filling the seat? And where did,
No questions,
where did
Mr.
that name come out of committee?
Page.
Where did the name come out of committee?
No questions.
We need to know these things.
Madam President, we
We
need
do.
to know these things.
Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Barkley?
I have a question I want to ask.
We can't do this.
I want to ask a question before
It's a motion on the floor,
Excuse me.
Mr. Barkley.
made
Can
the
you stop
motion.
talking to me, please? Because shut the F up. Shut the F up. This is what she's saying to me. Shut the F up.
Excuse me.
A board member has a problem with using foul language.
She's telling me shut the F up.
We have kids out in the
Ms.
audience,
Crouch.
please, please.
Who's Crouch?
Ms. Crouch has a problem using foul language
Roll
towards
call, Mr. Tompkins.
Couch, whatever.
We still have a question on the floor.
No, it's roll call.
I have a motion on the floor. It's been second.
It's roll
It's
call,
for the
Mr.
board to go into full committee as a whole.
I have a question to ask because
It's a motion, Mr. Barkley.
He has a question.
Now skip Mr. Barkley, important for now. Ms. Clements? I can't hear you.
She said abstain.
Ms. Couch? This is-
Madam
Ms. Mello?
President,
Yes.
Madam President, I have a motion on the floor. It
Ms.
should be
Morgan?
voted on. No. I have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Norris?
No.
Mr. Page?
No. Please, Madam President, if you want
Go
to
ahead.
resolve the
You're
culture,
out of- you're
if
out
you
of
want to
line,
resolve the
Mr.
culture
Page.
of this
We're in the
district,
middle of a vote.
excuse me,
We're in the middle of a vote.
it's over.
It's not.
It didn't pass.
It's not over. I didn't vote.
It didn't, oh, what's your vote?
Ms. Thomas?
Yes. Oh, it's never personal.
If we can take the
Barkley?
board another level, Madam President,
what do I do? I wanted to ask a question. I didn't ask the question. I can't vote without asking a question.
So we have one more. One
Mr.
more?
Barkley has not voted.
Oh.
He wants to ask a question. Everybody wants to have a question.
Yeah,
Not sure
I know.
Not enough. I'm waiting on Mr. Barkley, not enough.
Mr. Barclay has a problem because we had talked about this, of communicating with the board.
Excuse me, we're in the middle of a vote.
We have 4 new board members
We're in
that you
the-
don't
we're in
communicate
the-
with.
I don't
We're
have
in
the
the
question. I'm gonna
We have
say-
4 new board members that you do not communicate with.
They communicate with you.
They don't communicate with you,
You don't.
but you don't reach out.
You don't know. You don't know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
Okay. I mean, that's his right.
You want to abstain?
Yes, that's what I would do.
Can you please action on my vote, please? Let the board decide if they
So
want to
now,
go home.
Mr.
It did not pass.
Okay. Can it go back to my motion?
So, Mr.
Go back to my
Tompkins,
motion.
So now we got to do one by one? We got to do one by one?
No, none of this came through committee. That's a problem. I can't come to one meeting a month not being able to talk about the issues that are in these agendas, and you get a vote.
Who, you want to get it?
Accepting the minutes, is that
Mr. Tompkins
included in
has to use
this?
the restroom for a moment.
Are you calling recess?
Yes.
All
recess.
right.
Can we get
How long?
a motion for 15-minute recess?
15-minute recess. I still got a motion.
What was the last vote? We missed the Bahamas.
Make a motion to give Jim combat pay.
They can't make that motion to fire you. She can make it.
She can make it. I mean,
take the BA and the attorney out and shoot them, please?
Make them happy.
I do
Shoot
think,
them twice.
I do think we try to have some structure, some committee structure, and not have this. I do think that's needed. That's my opinion.
I'll talk to her now. I can't take this no more.
Claire, can we see your story, what you're writing there?
I know that Claire's got a good story. Big front page.
How many we have?
1, 2, 3, 4. We got enough.
Give it one more chance.
All right, everyone. The board meeting is back in session. I don't know where we go from here.
Yeah, 5.1. Yeah, right.
Madam President,
So, wait a minute,
are we open for business?
We're open.
Okay.
excuse me,
Motion's on the floor and second.
we could do all finance.
Committee as a whole. Let the board vote.
So we're gonna start off with all finance, because we have to go one by one.
Madam President, motion's been made and second for committee as a whole. We cannot continuously go the way that we're going.
So what's that, 5.1
Madam President,
through,
I will not move off of this until you call for the vote.
through 5.13?
Madam President, call for the vote. Let the board decide, not one person.
Go ahead,
Madam President, motion's on the floor and second.
Mr. Tompkins, we're gonna go through finance, starting at 5.1 through 5.14. Can I get a motion for 5.1
Madam
through
President,
5.14?
motion's already on the floor.
Excuse me, Mr. Page, there's no motion.
Yes.
And you're out of line.
Yes, there
And we're
was.
just gonna go by the agenda.
No, motion was on the
So
floor and
we're
second.
Can I get a motion for 5.1
Motion on the
through
floor for a
5.14?
second. Motion on the floor and a second. Let's call a vote. Let the
Can I
board
get a
decide.
motion, please?
Motion's on the
Motion
floor,
by
it was
Ms.
second.
Malone, second by Ms.
Motion on the
Couch.
floor, it was
Any
second.
questions for 5.1 through 5.14? Any questions?
Motion
There's
on
no
the board.
questions. Roll call, Mr. Tompkins?
This is finance 5.1 to 5.14. Mr. Barkley?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Sustain. Abstain.
Motion on the board, on the floor.
Ms. Couch?
Point of order.
You're out of order.
Point of order.
Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Point of order.
Mr. Norris?
No.
Mr. Page?
Point of order. Motion on the floor for committee as a whole, and second. Point of order. Madam President,
Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins. I
Ms.
guess
Thomas?
you can- Yes.
Elijah,
So,
And me.
I'm asking you to call the vote.
Jim, so what's that?
We have 4, 1 abstention, 2 no, and 1.
Just for, as far as Robert's Rules of Order, there is an agenda that's published. Pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order, the agenda is to proceed in accordance with the established agenda. If at the completion of the agenda, prior to adjournment, a motion is to be made, it can be made at that time. But any motion that's made off the floor that's not called for pursuant to the agenda is a motion that is not before this body.
Well, that's not the way that it's being
So are you
given.
voting, Mr. Page?
No, I'm not. I'm going to vote, but I want to make a statement. I cannot vote on this in the affirmative because I've never been able to have go into a committee meeting to learn about what's going to be on the agenda. From last week to today, no one has called me from the superintendent's office. No one's called me from Elijah's office. No one's called
So
me
what's your
from
vote, Mr.
you.
Page?
My question is,
No,
there's a
your
lot
vote.
in here.
Your vote. We're in the middle of a vote.
No.
Okay. So now we have.
No, I have a question. I have a question.
We have facilities.
I have
Mr.
a motion,
Tompkins,
I have a question.
Which is
To the
6.1.
attorney. To the attorney.
6.1.
Listen.
Mr. Tompkins. Can I get a motion for 6.1?
Yeah, let's vote. Motion's
motion
already
for-
been made.
Can I get a second for 6.1? We have first by Ms. Mello,
Let's go.
second by Ms. Couch.
Still gonna have five.
Any questions for 6.1? No questions, Mr. Tompkins? Roll call.
They're gonna still have.
Mr. Barkley,
Yes.
Ms. Clements,
I'm sorry, we're on 6.1, Yes.
Ms. Couch, Ms. Mello,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mr. Norris,
I don't know what's going on, sir. No. I don't know what's going on.
me neither. That makes two of us. Mr. Page,
Question, Elijah. Are we voting on the bill list? Is the bill list in any of these?
a
In the-
vote.
and you didn't vote on finance, sir. We're on facilities right now.
But the bill list was in finance?
Yes.
Okay, and that was already,
We're in the middle of a vote for facilities.
I made a motion.
Six
And it's been
point-
second, and you haven't
6.1.
carried it out.
6.1.
You haven't
What's your
carried it
vote,
out.
Mr. Page?
You haven't carried it out.
Come back.
Mr.
Abstain.
Page?
Abstain.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
6.1 passes.
So he is, yes.
Human resources with the exception of 7.3.
Can I get a motion for 7?
Wait a minute. Question.
Can I get a motion for 7? Oh, I'm sorry.
We
Second
asked
by
him-
Ms. Couch. Second, I second.
Question.
Any questions?
Yes, question. What committee did this
Go
come
ahead,
out
Mr.
of?
Page.
What committee did this come out of? Because I see no minutes of anything discussing who's going to be placed in Mr. William Marsh's position.
Well, Mr. Page, you already put it on the record that you're not voting for 7.1, right? I mean, well, I'm sorry, 7, human resources, correct?
I have a question.
But correct, you stated that you're not voting, right?
It's not part of the motion, is it?
You stated that you're not voting, right?
Is it part of the motion?
No, this is question.
Is it part of the motion? It's question. I'm questioning right now.
But you
I
you
did
stated
not
that
have
you're
an
not voting.
opportunity to read any minutes from any board members that sat on the
Okay, you
committee
made
for
that
human
clear.
resources to introduce hiring or putting somebody in a position that was riffed.
Okay.
A new classification, a new job description developed, which we did not, board members, myself, did not have opportunity to read or see or just ask questions. And
Mr.
who's
Page,
going to put,
But what you're stating is not true, so let's be
who
fair about
put
that.
$100,000 to that
So-
job?
Madam President,
Who put
Mr. Barkley,
who put $100,000? It's on the
okay.
agenda.
Go ahead, Mr. Barkley.
All right, fine. Thank you very much. My idea towards the discussion is that let us challenge them and face them face to face. I'm prepared to listen to what concern anyone has here so that they can explain themselves and I can ask them questions because if we don't do that, we'll be living here on a falsehood of things that ain't happen.
Right.
So I want some little bit of flexibility so that we can listen to people, hear their concerns,
Yes.
and maybe what they say may not be true in the first place. But if we don't get detail, the impression will be out there that someone's saying the truth, and we just walk away with wrong impression from here. So my question here is that, if you can allow me, do you receive the agenda for meetings?
No, I do not. Only on Friday on the computer, and the following Tuesday is the union meeting, the board meeting. But no committee. I'm not I haven't been asked to be on any committee.
All right, Madam
especially
President,
personnel.
I asked this question because what I have been understanding is that Brother Page doesn't receive information, but what he has told me, we get the information the same time. I get it on Friday the same time on computer, so I was a little bit concerned. I wanted to know if he received this information. And there are too many people out there that will believe that there is no information passed out to some board members, that they are being excluded. So this is why I want us to be very careful to let people to explain themselves so that the public can know the truth.
Yes.
If the entire board receive information the same time, and we will have the opportunity to read it at the same time, then we must be prepared to vote on it at the same time.
That's correct. That's correct. But you got to give the new board members an opportunity.
My next concern that I wanted to talk about is Brother Page has been talking about how you call this the
committee as a whole.
The committee as a whole, but at the same time he has been raising concern about committees being set up. So we can't have it both ways and roll away, because I'm for committee being set up. That's what I'm for. That's what I will vote for. But I have to give him the opportunity to know which side is for, because he's talking about two at the same time here. So you see, it will take our time to have the public to understand people. The information will be well disseminated, where we stand, and what we are voting on.
Yep. Right.
Because I, for one, am interested in having individual committees for every issue or every program that we have to run. And that board members will have the opportunity. Not all board members will be on the same committee at the same time.
Correct.
But some will be on committees.
Yes.
But it's not compulsory that he has to be on every committee. Of course, he knows that.
No.
So, you see, we have to take our time to face this issue and address them. If we shy away from them, there will be the impression that some people are champion for the people and we are against the people,
Right.
which is not true.
Right.
It's because we don't allow deliberation. Now I'm prepared to vote on any issue.
So my question is, what committee did this come out of? And to revisit the motion that was made in second, that we talk about going into committee as a whole. It gives all new board members an opportunity to discuss. Now, this issue with 7.2, with this coordinator of facilities, we got a new job description, we got a new salary. Who came up with the salary? My understanding, the board makes up the salary. It may come from the superintendent or recommendation from Elijah, but the board makes a final decision on what salary. And why are we looking at $100,000?
So it came out of,
And was it ever posted?
came
Was
out
it
of-
ever posted for anybody else to pick
it
it?
came out of HR. It was posted.
And who was the committee?
And what's your other question?
Who was the committee? Who was on the committee?
It was a committee. So what's your other
No.
question?
See, I think,
Okay.
in all fairness,
So, all right.
Madam President,
No, thank you,
you don't
Mr. Page.
let me give
Go ahead,
you,
Mr.
let me give you, no, let me give you
Go
policy
ahead. Go ahead,
number,
Mr. Norris. Excuse me,
zero-
Mr. Page. Mr.
policy
Norris has
number
a question.
0155,
Mr. Page,
board
Norris has a
committees.
question.
board committees, policy number
You're out of
0155.
line, Mr. Page.
I want to give this to you,
Go ahead. I don't
Madam
need it,
President, because you
I
don't understand what I'm
haven't-
talking about.
Listen.
What board member
You don't
sat
know
on the
what I
committee?
understand.
What board
But
member sat on the
What you don't
committee?
understand is Mr. Norris has a question. So go ahead, Mr. Norris.
What board
your
member
question?
sat on this committee, Madam President?
My question to you, Madam President, is this.
Excuse me.
What committee?
I don't need, please don't give me anything, Mr. Page. I don't know who this man thinks he is.
That's the policy.
Go ahead, Mr. Norris.
I just have a few questions. What committee am I on, I should ask?
Wait, it's questions about 7.1. We're at 7.1.
Yes, it is. I'm just saying to you, Madam President, is that as a new board member, I wasn't made aware of this for Tyson Bevel. I'm sorry, I apologize. I wasn't
So,
made
but what's your
aware
question
of.
about 7.1?
My question is, what committee am I on? Because
Okay, but that, you'll get that, but
Because I
we're
haven't
talking
received
about
any.
7.1.
Right, but I'm saying, how can we approve this? Was there a job description approved? What certs does he have? When was he approved and by whom? I'll repeat the question.
Now, if we had a committee, we can answer.
No, we had a committee. We had a committee.
What board members on the committee?
We had a committee.
What board members on the committee?
We had, you
Just
wasn't.
you?
You wasn't.
I know, that's
Oh,
what I'm asking you.
Exactly.
That's what I'm asking you.
Exactly. So any other questions, Mr.
Yeah,
Norris?
my question was, again, can I repeat myself what I asked without mentioning the person's name? When was he approved and by whom? What certs does he have? Was job description approved, and how did we come up with $100,000?
So how do we, act?
Those are genuine questions.
Okay, so, I mean, we're in the middle anyway. Oh, right.
Okay.
Did you want to respond? I can.
Give me, Mr. Page, the board chairman.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Can you, please refrain from talking out loud, please? I'm gonna give you a chance. We have another, public portion. I'm gonna give you a chance to speak.
Oh.
Go ahead, Dr. Austin.
Yes, Mr. Page, the board chairperson has given me permission to answer your question. To begin with, the job description was approved several meetings ago. It was submitted to the board, and it was approved. The individual was interviewed, has the appropriate certifications, and he was interviewed by 5 administrators within the district. 5 administrators within the district. And so as far as the salary, it is a prorated salary, and it was compiled or arrived at with consultation with the business administrator, the assistant business administrator, and researching other districts that had similar positions, and it actually fell within a very reasonable. So basically what you're looking at is not $100,000. This is a interim position that will only go up until June. So we're talking about a few months. And then because we need someone to take charge of those responsibilities. And at that time, the position will be recommended to the board that we actually open it up internally and externally with all of the requirements that are needed.
So, Dr. Austin, just the one question I have, who sits on the personnel committee? Who's on the personnel committee? Did this all go through the personnel committee committee?
Yes, it did.
And who sits on that?
Well, I don't think that's a question I want to get
Superintendent,
into.
Dr. Austin, I'm asking you a question.
Well,
you don't have to get permission from the board president.
No, but actually, I've answered the question that the president gave me.
Then I'm asking you a question. Did you present did you present the whole agenda of personnel or human resources to the committee?
Yes.
And who sits on that committee?
We're talking about 7.1 still, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Austin, who
Okay.
sits on the committee?
7.2.
All right, thank you.
Madam
Thank you,
President?
Dr. Austin.
You're welcome.
But
Madam President?
Listen, if I find out who sits on
Go
the
ahead,
committee,
Mr. Norris.
I could
You're
probably
out of
sit on the
line.
committee because you can have no more than 3. But if
You're
you
out of
tell me how
line.
many board members are on the committee,
Excuse me, Mr. Page. Like, listen to
then why can't you answer my question, Madam President?
You'll get a copy of it if you didn't get it already.
Why can't you answer my
You
question?
would get a copy.
Do you understand why a committee as a whole is important?
Mr. Norris?
yes, ma'am. Listen. The question is, what certs does he have also, I asked. What certifications does Mr.
State certification.
So-and-so have?
Yeah. The individual is fully certified as a facilities coordinator. He meets all of the qualifications, and he has a copy of the certificate on file.
My other question is, how do I not know about this? That's my question. It's hard for me to make a decision on, or give input on this when I don't know what's going on.
When you say you don't
When
know
I say,
about-
when I mean as a new board member, I didn't receive any information about, person X. I didn't receive any information about this person. And my question is, I don't see how we could approve something if the board members as a whole, if we didn't receive anything. I don't want to be out of line, but it's just hard to move forward with this because I don't know if Ms. Morgan received any information,
No, I
Mr.
haven't.
Page, myself.
I'm sorry, what kind of information are we talking about?
My question is to you, let me answer that question. My thing is, as a board member, I want to know what goes on in each committee. Now, since I've been sworn
You
in.
should have received that as well.
Listen to me. I should have, but listen. Since I've been here on the board, I haven't received anything. Nothing.
What?
So I don't know what committee I'm on, if I'm on a committee. I don't know when the committee meetings are.
We all supposed to be on the committee.
So, again, I'm in left field. I'm in the dark. I don't know what's going on. So it's hard for me to really, how can we approve this if we don't know as a whole what's going on, especially myself, speaking for myself. It's just hard for me to move on. I want to know what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nard. Any other questions?
Yes, Madam President, I have a question for Dr. Austin. Who has been filling in his spot since Speedy's been gone? Has it been the same person that, that's on the agenda for tonight?
Well, wait a minute. We'll discuss this if we even do a proposal.
The reason why I'm asking is
Okay,
because.
Ms.
go-
Morgan.
The reason why I'm asking is because I sat on the board when Speedy was being attacked about the mold and everything that was going on in the school district, and that was part of what everybody was complaining, that he wasn't doing his job. And being back on the board and me receiving pictures with mushrooms growing in the classrooms and molded toilet paper that's being transferred from classrooms, from school to school instead of being disposed, and teachers buying their own supplies for the children as well as the staff. So I just wanted to know if this is the same person that was filling in at the time that Speedy was going through all of this. And it seems like the situation has got worse. I remember sitting here when individuals was at the microphone pointing up at the ceiling with the mold, and I have pictures of the mold and everything on the ceiling. So I've been off the board for a year, and I'm back, and I see that the situation with the mold is worse. So I know when I left, he was
So, wait a
sitting in
minute.
that spot.
Ms. Morgan, what's your question?
I know when I left, he was sitting in that spot.
What's your
And
question?
you getting the question, just give me a second, all right?
No, go ahead.
So
Just
the
go
question
to the
is
question.
he still the same person that was sitting in the spot when Speedy was moved and that's on the agenda now to be hired for that position?
Respond? Actually,
Yes or no?
the person, nobody was actually in that position. That's why now it was being advertised. It's been advertised.
He was
for-
acting at one time, am I correct?
Well, actually, this is the first time that we have recommended.
No, that's
anyone.
not the question. So that's not the proper answer.
Well, I can't give you the proper answer. I'm telling you, the fact is, no one has been, officially appointed in that position. We've had several people trying to get things
So
done. But in terms of the position itself, this is the first time we're recommending an interim, someone to officially take responsibility for the things you've mentioned and to manage the other maintenance staff and to try to get some things done. And we've had a lot of things that have gotten done. But this is the first time that the position is being recommended to be filled by any individual.
Excuse me. So the whole time, like I said, I've been going for a year. I served 3 years, been going for a year back again. And the last 2 years was going after Speedy, mainly for the mold and everything that's going on in school and is going on now. And when he was removed, if I'm correct, could be wrong, he was filling in at that time for him. So with him filling in then, and the situation is getting worse, especially when it's from toilet paper being transferred from bathroom to bathroom, and I see him on the agenda now, my question is, who was filling that, was he involved in that spot being filled when Speedy left?
First of all, I think we're crossing the line on evaluating employees, so be careful. Second issue, we had a director of operations, and I think they forget that.
I can't hear you.
We had a title of director of operations,
Okay.
so it wasn't him filling in. But I don't want to get involved in
No,
evaluating.
I'm asking because I don't know.
No, I
that
just
was
want
the
you to know
impression I
that
was
we
under.
had a director of operations, interim director of operations.
All right, that's why I asked the question.
Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Barkley.
Yes.
Ms. Clements.
No.
Ms. Couch. Ms. Mello.
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
No.
Mr. Norris.
No.
Mr. Page.
No.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Madam President, I have another question before we move on, and I know it's.
Go ahead, Mr. Page.
I received the minutes for January 3rd, 2019. We're supposed to vote on it tonight, but I just talked to the secretary, said they're being pulled. But I'd like to bring out something that's very important.
Mr. Page, can we just go on with the agenda and then you can bring that back once we're done?
As long as I can come back.
And Ms. Page, I didn't say they were going to be pulled. I said they were going to be corrected. I think we just spoke that I said that they needed to be corrected, and we will correct them.
Well, actually, they need to be not voted on tonight.
I understand that, but you had made a statement. I just want to clarify that statement. I said that they would be corrected. But ultimately, we will pull them.
Okay. But I'm going to be able to come back on that, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
So now we have 7.4.
What are we doing?
7.4 through
No, they went over. He's
I'm trying to 7.4 through
7.3.
it looks like 7.11.
Where we, what is the,
7.4 through 7.11.
are we ready? We ready for the 7.3 for the,
First of all, I think there's some confusion. I think there's some confusion here. The HR agenda as a whole was defeated. It didn't pass. HR
so you couldn't
in,
get, can't go
in
over.
total, they voted on.
That's right.
No, with exception.
Didn't go through committee. All that's done. Can we go to the hearing?
It was just facilities.
He's part of HR.
Everything else failed.
It didn't pass.
Now we're on C&I.
How if I said 7.1?
Yeah, you're right.
That's what they did, right?
I thought we just did HR. HR.
We should be on 7.3.
Curriculum?
But that's not what we did.
7.3 is,
By the number.
you see what 7.3 is?
Excuse me.
It's, more. It's more.
That's why I said we did everything.
I thought we had all of HR. That's fine. That's fine.
got it?
Yes, sir. 7.2 fails, now you go to 7.3.
Right.
And what Carlos is saying, you can go 7.3 through.
Or 7.4, because we said saving 7.3.
You're going to skip 7.
So 7.4 through 7.11.
Motion to vote on them by consent. See if that passes first.
So just say, can I get a motion to vote on 7.4 through 7.11? Right?
All right. Madam President, can we get a motion to vote on HR 7.4 through 7.11?
Can I get a motion, please? Can I get a second?
I think
Second by Ms. Mello.
We just voted on it. It didn't pass. We just voted on the consent. It didn't pass. So why are we breaking it up now?
No, right.
Didn't pass, so we're doing it section by section. It's breaking it smaller.
Yeah. If it didn't pass, why we?
We just did the first one. We only did 7.2.
We voted on the whole thing as a consent, and that
The
didn't
motion
go.
that didn't pass was to do it as a consent agenda, and it passed it as a consent agenda. When
Right.
that didn't pass, now we have to break down the individual
Correct.
items. Now, we can do it in groups of items or one at a time. The last one was broken off was Mr. Human Resources, rather, and that was, I'm sorry, or that was 7.1.
7.2.
Right, so that was voted down. 7.3, we're going to carry. Now we have 7.4 through 7.9?
7.11.
11. So if you want to vote on them as a group, you vote on them as a group, or if you want to do them individually. If the motion to vote as a group fails, then we have to vote on them individually. So the motion now was to vote affirmatively on them as a group. If that passes, that takes care of that part of the agenda. If it doesn't pass, then we have to get an individual vote on each of those.
But wasn't the first motion for the group?
It was to vote as a
For all.
consent agenda for all of them. If they all
All.
passed, yes, it would have been over. But they didn't. The consent agenda didn't pass, so now we have to go through the individual items. Or, again, as subgroups. And this motion is a subgroup, the balance of 7 with the exception of 7.3.
Correct. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, let's vote on the
So can I get a motion to move 7.4 through 7.11?
Here we got
Coming back to that.
Oh, we already had it first and second.
7.3, we're
Couch,
coming
and
back
we
to
had,
7.3?
Mello,
We coming back to 7.3?
yes. Any questions for 7.4 through 7.11? Seeing no questions, roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Barkley?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
No.
Ms. Couch? Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Mr. Norris?
Abstain.
Do you gotta say why he abstained? Because it's HR?
You're abstaining because of the conflict.
Right. No, you don't have to say why. He doesn't have to say why.
Mr. Page?
My vote is no, because I haven't been in part of the committee.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Still got a motion on the floor for committee as a whole. And second.
Nothing's getting done.
Madam President, if you let me help you, I can help you.
But what you gonna do? Huh? I mean, we still gotta go through the vote. If it fails, it fails because they voted no. So we're gonna go from,
Need a motion for 7.4. You're saying we have to vote on it individually?
Oh, right, it failed, so now we gotta do it individually.
If they want to make a motion to vote no on all of them, let us do that.
Well, tell them.
Again, the idea of the consent agenda of lumping the motions together is in order to expedite the process and speed the process along. If everyone's going to vote no on those motions, we can make a motion to vote no on items 7.4 through
7.11.
7.11, and we can try it that way. If we get 5 no votes to vote no on all those items, then we
But
don't have to
Jim,
vote on them individually.
Jim, what I'm trying to put in what the board is trying to tell you is, listen, we want to be a part of this. And the 4 new board members coming in, we don't know anything.
So it's gonna be the same.
There's no committee meetings, there's nothing. So we're trying to make a statement here to say, listen, we don't want to vote no on all this stuff, but we want to be a part of it. You know what I'm saying? And the board members, they speak for themselves, but listen to what I'm saying, Madam President. We're here to help. We're not here to hurt. You know, we got elected on the board. The
All right,
citizens of
you
Pleasantville
done.
voted
So
us in
what
to
we-
make
so
something
it
happen.
failed 7.4 through 7.11.
Go back to my
failed.
motion.
So now we gotta go back to,
My motion.
I just wanna make it clear, so just
This will be a motion to say no to 7.4 to 7.11.
11.
If there's a motion and a second.
Mr. Norris made the motion.
Okay, got it, all right.
Is there a second?
Second,
Clemens made a second. Mr. Barkley,
Yes?
this is to say no to the, will you vote yes to say no?
Sorry.
The vote now is, do you vote no on item 7.4 to 7.11 collectively?
So, yes, no. Here we are, we're voting to say no to these items. And actually, they won't pass on this, so that.
If we get 5 no votes, that's the end of those items. If we don't get 5 no votes, then we have to go through them individually.
You can vote on my motion.
Wait, let's be clear. A yes is a no vote. You're voting no to say no. So you're voting yes to say no. So that's what that is. It's what it is.
Unless we abstain.
Unless you abstain. So. No, it's not that simple.
Just to clarify, if 5 people say yes, then that's the end of that particular portion of the agenda. It's turned down. If less than 5 say yes, then we have to go through each individual item, 7.5, 7.
Yeah, let's go with
but
individual
this is the
items.
way that you guys wanted this, so that's why we here.
No, we want to vote on the
Yeah,
motion
no,
I made and was
This is how you
second.
wanted it, so that's why we here. So go ahead.
We have a motion on the floor.
What you guys want is to understand what's going on. It's not fair to us to just keep saying yes, yes, no, no, no. You tell them to shut up.
Say it.
You better take off the,
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let's keep it professional here.
Say it.
Come on now. Come on.
Excuse me.
Don't tell them no.
Ms. Morgan.
Tame her, okay? Tame her.
Wow.
Don't tame her.
Excuse me, Miss Morgan, Miss Couch.
No, it ain't just Miss Morgan. Correct your partner so she can stop telling people shut up and cussing at people.
Well, I said her name.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. I apologize.
There's a vote. There's a vote. We have to take this
When we
vote.
go to that portion of the.
We have to take this vote, please.
Well,
Mr.
this is the way they want it, so that's the way we do it.
Mr. Barkley voted yes to say no. Okay, so that's fine. Ms. Clements.
Yes.
Ms. Couch. Ms. Mello.
No.
Ms. Morgan. Mr. Norris. Mr. Page.
Abstain.
Ms. Thomas.
No.
Okay. We don't have 5. So
now we gotta
HR
go through-
as a whole fails. All of HR fails. That's fine. That's fine. Let's move on to CNI. Madam President, I need a motion for the CNI agenda as a whole.
What number is that? 8? Or 10? 10? 10. Oh, so that's 10.1 through. Did you find it?
Where is it, Jim? What is it?
10.10. 10 through 10.10.
Madam President, can I get a motion for CNI agenda as a whole? Ms. Clements made the motion.
Second.
Ms. Thomas made the second.
Any questions for CNI?
Yes,
Seeing no
what-
questions?
yes. What committee did it come out of? The curriculum committee?
Yes, it did.
And who sits on the committee?
You'll get the list.
There is no one that
Any
sits
other
on the committee?
questions?
When was the meeting?
Any other questions?
When was the meeting?
No other questions. Roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
Mr. Barkley? Ms. Clements?
Yes.
Ms. Couch? Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Mr. Norris?
No, sir.
Mr. Page?
Abstain.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries. Madam President, HR item 7.3. Ms. Dr. Olson.
Madam President, I'd like to pull that item.
Okay. Can I get a motion to pull 7.3?
I need a motion to pull 7.3.
Why?
Mr. Norris made the motion?
Motion.
No, I didn't
Can
make
I-
a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up.
Can I get a motion?
Why are we
Motion
pulling, Dr.
by
Austin?
Ms. Mello.
Answer my
Mello?
question.
Can I get a second?
I have a question.
Second. Second. Any questions?
Question. Dr. Austin, why are we pulling this? Why are you pulling this? If you pull this time,
Yeah, let me respond to there. There are several things I needed to check on first, make sure they're legal. There's some additional information that I have received that I need to review pertaining to this.
Call the vote.
I have a question.
Vote.
I have a question.
No, don't leave.
I have a question.
We have a first and second.
I have a question.
On-
Yes. Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Thompson. Go ahead, Mr. Norris.
How come we pulling this? Because this man been waiting here for 4 hours, and we're talking about his livelihood. And it's been more times this thing's been pulled before tonight. I think we should move on with it and hear it.
As I said, there's some additional information that has come to my attention, and I need to review that and evaluate it.
Madam President, when he's done, can I speak?
Anything else, Mr. Norris? Go ahead, Ms. Morgan.
Dr. Austin, last time you said you found no reason to go forward with this information, with this decision that you recommended.
I beg
You're
your
making
pardon?
it hard for us to go by your recommendation, and then you turn around and you constantly doing something again, and your excuse is more information that's coming by you.
You
I
said
know I
that
can't
in
discuss what was an executive session, and I'm not, but you're making it hard to get the support that you need when you keep doing what you're doing this, and you keep saying you just find out information. Like, how long is it taking you to get this information, like the investigation, like, where every day somebody's popping up right before the meeting, before it's time for you to make a decision? Or the light bulb just come on and say, oh, wait a minute, I got something to say.
Ms.
Like,
Morgan,
what is it?
In your beginning, you said that in the beginning I made a recommendation.
Yes.
Your first statement. What was that? I'm sorry.
In the back of just pulling it for now, and you was going to have a meeting with all the information to come up. I received a call, and I asked, could I be on the intercom? Because I couldn't be here because it seemed like these meetings is being scheduled the days I have to work. I never received a call back pertaining to this or anything. So I'm actually shocked to see that it's back on the agenda. And instead of going through with the matter, you're pulling it again. But from the last conversation that I heard, was like it was okay until everybody got a chance to see what's going on. So now you're saying you're pulling it again because you have other information. Are we all going to be aware of the information?
Yeah, you
And
will.
if y'all schedule time, can y'all make sure that it's not on a Monday or Tuesday, because those are the days that I work. I'm off on a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so I can attend, because this is going on for so long, and it's not fair to have this holding over someone's head, not knowing if he could work today and not work tomorrow. So
There was an attempt to pull everybody together and have a discussion for the specific reason. But as I said, there is some information that has come forward, some additional information. I need to review it.
And will this information be provided for the full board, where you said you had information that you want us all to go over before we make the decision?
Absolutely.
Can it be done on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? Mondays and Tuesdays is not good for me.
Okay, I can't guarantee that. I guess we'll have to, talk with individual board members and see. what the
Okay,
case
well,
is.
if you can't make it around that time, and it has to be on a Monday and Tuesday, can I be called in on a conference call? I do not want this matter to go past me without having my opinion on it and my vote.
I can understand that. And I certainly will make sure that we do everything we can to make sure everybody has and hears all the information.
I appreciate it.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Barker.
first of all, I want to say thank you to the Honorable Lady for your reconciliatory approach. And that's the way I want us to handle things here. I was going to vote no against that, because the mere fact that it came before us and we were prepared for it, I was going to say no. But you sounded very nice. I think we have to give room to issues so that they can be resolved in a way that everyone can have an input. So I appreciate the fact that you accept the superintendent's commitment that he's going to disseminate information to everyone that is concerned. I just want to appeal to my fellow board members so that we can give it a second thought and give the superintendent the time to give us the information. I'm not happy about it, but let's give him the time to give us the information that he needs. And also to Mr. Rice, I think he needs to hear from let him give us some time. I know he waited a long time, but we want to make informed judgment. We want to make informed decision. We want to have information. So I appreciate what you did, my fellow board member, and I think I know how I'm going to vote now. But first, I was going to definitely say no.
Excuse me, we waited to be heard on this
Wait, I'm
issue.
sorry.
And when
So-
will we be able to?
Wait a minute, excuse me, Steve.
Yes.
So, roll call, Mr. Tompkins.
But now, yeah.
Motion to table,
7.3.
To pull.
Mr. Rice?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a motion.
yeah. Mr. Barkley?
Yes.
Ms. Clements? Ms. Couch? Ms. Mello?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
No.
Mr. Norris? No. Mr. Page?
No, and do not bring it back again.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
I'm trying to figure this out right now.
Given the fact that there was insufficient votes to table it, right, 7.3 will move forward with the hearing. There was according to another incident that occurred on Friday. I believe Dr. Alston's recommendation was, given that incident, it would be better to table this and get that information. My suggestion would be all the information we're going to present tonight, that we would make it available to the board. There was going to be a meeting yesterday, I believe, that was canceled because of the snow, which would have helped with this. So I fully understand the new board members and really all the board members' positions with regard to having to make a decision on less than complete information. So I think the motion to table would be in order, given not only the fact that we have the information previous, but there was another incident on Friday that the board should be aware of. We don't really have that information. That just happened. And the suggestion would be to table it. Now, if you don't want to table it, that's your decision, and we will present the information that was provided to us previously. We'll go through that, and we'll have the hearing. But that was the reason why it was suggested to be tabled. And I think that would probably be a better way to resolve it, but that's your determination.
The question is, even though something could have allegedly occurred on Friday, he was on the agenda Friday night
Right.
for termination.
Before that incident occurred, he was on the agenda for termination. That's correct, sir.
So whatever happened Friday should not be added into today.
Well, I think the point that Dr. Alston was making is that he certainly wants to complete the investigation into that incident and determine whether or not it is another factor for the board to consider. And you have said that you want all of the facts. Not all the facts are available. That information is not available.
Then I would tell you, we can go in executive session, and the superintendent can tell us what
No,
more they have.
Mr. Rice has already indicated that he wants it to be in public session, so we cannot do that, sir.
Then he can bring it out now.
You can bring it out now.
He can bring it out now.
But again, it's just something that occurred Friday. I think Dr. Alston is saying he'd rather have more time to prepare to investigate it, but he certainly can do that if he wishes to do so.
I just don't think you can add on something once it's been on the agenda for, you got something on him, Dr. Austin is recommending termination. What Friday's going to change anything that was already allegedly done?
You could have a vote tonight based upon the existing information.
Right.
And it could be on again next month based upon the additional information.
So be it.
All right, so what we doing here?
May I say something, please?
Wait a minute, Steve.
Because this has been very humbling
Okay.
and
All
very
right, all right,
patient.
Steve, please, just
Please, to how long?
until I'll let you know that you can talk on the mic. All right? So can you just have a seat, please?
How much longer is going to be? Because to sit here and hear this about this process that's been going on this board today, and thinking that we're going to get a fair and due diligence hearing after all that's been said, and to wait here for 3 hours to say you have something else, let's stop the witch hunt. Stop playing
excuse me,
games.
Steve.
We're not one. Half of this
Steve.
community stayed here
Excuse
to hear
me.
this.
Steve.
This is disrespectful.
Steve.
Not to you.
No, I mean, it's not disrespectful.
But I'm saying it is
because
disrespectful. It is
it's
very,
not,
very
it's not
disrespectful.
disrespectful because
For
we're
him to
moving
sit
forward.
there, for him to sit
We're
there,
moving forward
for
with
him to
this
sit there,
meeting.
for him to sit there
What are we doing
for
now?
3 hours, 4 hours,
Who's gonna read the
and then say he has something else he wanted pulled.
All right, Steve, can you have a seat, please? Ben, you gonna read the charges? I mean, I'm sorry, not the charges, but the report.
It's not in the way
Before
of
you go any
charges.
further,
No,
we
excuse
demand to have a
Steve.
copy of that report before you say another word.
Steve, please.
That doesn't work that way.
You haven't received anything.
Right, can you have a
You're
seat,
gonna hear
please?
every
I'm
word
just
of
putting
it.
it on record, due process.
Okay, first of all, this is not a hearing or trial. This is not an opinion. It's a presentation that I would give to the board in executive session. It's the duty of the board to consider the following information and to make a decision. There will be no questions from the public. The board may ask questions afterwards. First of all, it's apparent that Mr. Rice was repeatedly counseled, and the nature of his conduct was explained to him through the entire process. Pursuant to Board Policy 4140, Calvin Rice was provided with a statement of reasons for his dismissal. The following information is taken directly from his personnel file. It includes his entire employment with the district. Mr. Rice has received letters of reprimand for inappropriate conduct on the following dates: February 2001 for allegedly choking a student, for which he was offered classes in student welfare and passive restraint. September 12th, 2001 for inappropriate and disrespectful comments in the presence of students, parents, and staff. And November 30th, 2001 for complaints by parents for allowing unauthorized relative who was not properly signed in to access the cafeteria and for the use of unnecessary force. On August 6, 2002, Mr. Rice was reprimanded for unauthorized leave, and on February 10th, 2003, he was suspended for 1 day without pay for an unauthorized leave and a uniform policy violation. On April 28th, 2005, he received a reprimand for excessive absences. A letter was placed in his file on October 8th,